Hi everybody, Llewellyn here with Born to Whimsy, and I am just continuing on painting of this beach dresser, and today I'm going to be showing you all how to put in your beach grass. So this is a dresser that I started, probably at the end of last month, and I've just slowly been working through it. And today I'm getting all of these beach grasses in on the bottom. I've already done the background in this dark green colored greens color from Dixie Belle. And I'm just gonna be adding in the grass on top of that, and then maybe doing a wash of some gravel road over this sunset reflection up here. So I'm going in over what I already laid in. I laid in the background, and so I'm gonna go in over the top and add in my grass and just kind of show you how I get my texture and stuff. And I'm just going in with a fine tip brush and making all of my tiny little grass. It's a little bit painstaking, so you might have to bear with me as I do it. Okay, so going in here, I'm starting in the background with a darker green. You can see from over here, I have kind of a mix of colors. Some of the grass will be darker than others, some will be shadowed, and some will be bright where the sun is hitting it. So I went behind it with this collard greens color from Dixie Belle, and that gave me a really good background to start with. And then I just kind of do all my little lines. I've done another version of this, but a bigger version on a little vanity I have. And I did this sort of grass on there, kind of. Okay, so I'm gonna add some darks in there, and then I just kind of go back and forth between dark and light. And I'm just misting with my mister bottle to keep it a little bit wet. I don't want too much water on there. I just want it a little, brush keeps moving easily. The chalk paint dries pretty quickly, and I don't want it to drag. Okay, in with the dark in the back. And I'm just using a fine tip brush, getting in my beach grass. And I'm using Dixie Belle paint with collard greens back here. And the background doesn't matter as much as the foreground. You can kind of, mistakes are okay because it's just grass. And if I'm gonna get through it, I gotta move kind of quickly because, yeah, I have some other stuff I wanted to show you guys today too. I'm probably gonna slowly move up into the reflection, and then I also want to be able to put some more white in there and finish off some of the details, at least on a couple of the waves before this dresser's done, and do that live with everybody. So this is my part 3 for this dresser, and the first one I got in the background, and I can always post that link if you ever need it. The first one I put in the whole background, and the second one I did my ocean and then down through the beach and the background for the grass down here. And then this is my third. This will be my third live for this piece. Okay, so I'm gonna go in with some lighter tan color over the top now. Get my paint a little bit more wet, it's drying. There we go. And this is the highlights for my grass. This is where the sun's hitting it, or it's just dried out. And I just go in. If you want the wind to be blowing it in one way, just make it all head in one direction, and then have some random ones going the other way. And you can make some areas lighter, like where you would have more sun hitting, and then other areas maybe are a bit lower, so you could use lower greens and maybe not quite as bright of a tan. And I always learn by watching anyway, so that's why I like to share it. You know, there's a lot of great YouTube videos out there for stuff like this, so That's how I learn. Every time I try to paint something new, I go watch a bunch of painting videos on it first. There we go. Just getting the little tips of the grass in. Now I'm gonna go in a little, again, with the darker green and do closer and closer to the viewer. And this is just to add that fine detail in there, the parts that would pop out at you from a photo or as you're standing there. And today I'm using, this is the Tipsy brush from the Turquoise Iris. I bought that set from her. And yes, I still like them and I'm enjoying them. I know some people asked me how it was going with my new brushes. I was pretty excited about them, so. Just adding a bit of water on my brush just to keep it flowing and easy. Okay, I'm gonna get some bigger ones as you come towards the viewer in the forefront. And I'm kind of leaving one little area a bit darker, I'm thinking, because it might be shadowed in there. Maybe it's a little bit lighter in the, or I mean a little bit lower and the light is not reaching it. Keep just doing a similar motion. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy, but when you just keep adding in all those little details, that's when it really comes to life. I can go over the colors I'm using too. So to mix my tan, I'm using Dixie Belle colors. I'm using Cotton White is my base, sort of blended all together color. And I'm using a mix of the, let me make sure I get the right color. This is Daisy and Apricot and Aubergine, which is this deep, deep purple. And that's what I'm mixing to make the tan. An odd choice of colors, and I know Dixie Belle carries some tan. I just didn't have any on hand, so gotta make do with what you got. Okay, and I kind of want it to connect to this side. So I'm just going to keep bringing these little grasses around the edge here. Make sure that it looks like one painting that comes all the way around the edge of this piece. I did another piece where I wrapped the painting and it was, I think, one of my other favorite piece when I wrapped the painting all the way around the piece of furniture. So I decided, obviously this one, it's all curvy. It's like a big kidney bean shape. So this one needed that too. Okay, I'm gonna go in at the top now that it's dried a little bit up here. And I'm just gonna go over some of those. That's a little bit light. And don't worry, I'm gonna be painting the bottom here again. So let me get that a little darker. I'm gonna go in up here at the top and go over some of the strokes I already made and just lighten them up to show, like, just define it a little bit more. It's blending in a bit with the sand in some places up there. And just tiny, tiny grasses. Okay, I really like the way this is looking with the lighter ones on the top, because that's kind of where I want the sun to be hitting the most. Let's see if I can bring some of these down a little further. Okay, and then for the very bottom, this is going to be the closest to the viewer. I'm going to do a little bit bigger, kind of coming up, so you can really see them. I don't want too many of them because I don't want it to look too messy, but that might be a little bit big, which is okay. I can always go back in with a darker color and just kind of go underneath it, and there you go. Now it looks smaller. Maybe I'll start with my darker color down here and get my lines in first. There we go. Painting mistakes are so easy to fix because it's paint. Yeah, so after this, I'm gonna head up to the waves. I obviously still have more to finish over here, but I don't want you guys to have to watch me paint grass forever. Because usually I think the grass just on this side is gonna take a couple of hours. Or at least a good hour. Okay, go in with some bigger ones right here, just to show that you're a bit closer. Get my paintbrush a little bit more wet so that it comes to a fine tip, and then finish these ones. There we go. That looks like a blade of grass right there. I find that if I have too much paint on the end, it doesn't let it come to that really fine edge. Or if the paint has dried out a bit and it's not wet enough. And get these little tiny tops on them. Yeah, that looks pretty good. It's looking similar to the other side. Okay, finishing up down here with the grass for now. Maybe do a couple round ones here. And then we'll move on up to, I think I'll move on to some of the white in the waves. As you can see, the grass is pretty simple. It's just layering. It's a lot of layering and just going back in with lighter and darker colors, one after the other. And if you feel like it's too light, you go back in with some dark. If it's too dark, you can come back in with the light. So for this wave, last week I just put in the base of it, and today I just want to add some color and maybe some definition and highlights coming over the top as they would sort of pour over the top of the wave as it rolls. Let me get my blue. So I'm going to be using Cobalt Blue from Dixie Belle. It's this cobalt color, a good name for it. And then also Bunker Hill Blue is a really pretty navy. And I'm gonna be mixing them in with cotton for my white. Get this selfie here. Up at the top of the wave, I'm gonna have it lighter because that's where most of my light is going to be reflecting off of. And then maybe some drippies coming down where you can see it. And this wave is a bit further away, so I don't need it to be too detailed. It's just nice to be able to see a bit of it. You can add some of the blue back in and make your little streaks coming over the top, where the shadows and the ripples are in the wave. Just kind of defining where the sun's bouncing off of it. So yes, I always seal my pieces, and you can use a wax with this paint, or you can use a top coat. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I always just go for the like polyacrylic style top coats just because that's what I started with, so that's what I'm used to. But a wax would probably be just fine. Okay, going back in with white, and I'm just going back and forth. I'm adding some white and I'm adding blue. And I just want to give this wave like the idea that it's rolling over the top, coming at ya. And it looks like I got a little bit of my apricot in there, which is fine. It might just be what I put apricot on there last week, or I mean 2 days ago. Sorry, my days are all running together here. It's just been that way lately. So I think the apricot is shining through a little bit, which is great because I put apricot on the other waves because that's what's going to be reflecting down from the sky, my sunset. Okay, I want it to look a little drippy. And as I said before, this part for me, I don't need it to be perfect. Here, I just want the wall of the wave to come over because it is so far away. But I did want to give it a bit of definition so you could kind of see what's going on out there in the water. And then maybe just highlight across the top. Maybe that wave's coming down right there. Okay, so for this is under and that's coming over. The white's the part that's kind of dripping down and coming over. So I'm going to go in with my Bunker Hill blue and create a bit more of a shadow underneath, but I still want it lighter than down here because some of the light can show through from the other side of the wave. You're going to get some light. So I'm just going to follow underneath my white. There we go, and just bring the shape of that wave. Give it some motion. And keep this white up here, or lighter. Oops, that wasn't white enough. There we go. So I have this under here. Sometimes I lose my train of thought. All right, and then we're gonna go darker down here because it's the thicker part of the wave and the light is blocked out. And I'm gonna grab a more blendy brush and do that part. And try not to mix my colors into my paint too much. There we go. That's a bit yellow. There we go. And yes, I use my fingers with this paint. It doesn't seem to bother them too much, so. And that works. How's that looking? Oh yeah, looks really good when you step back. Okay, so I'm gonna continue on with this part and add a bit more of the highlights that I was adding last time back in here and then come down. I like to work from the top down. It just makes it easier, and then if you drip or anything, you can just go wipe it up really quick. All right, I'm gonna spray it a tiny bit just to keep it moist or damp so that I can work with my paint for a little bit longer. And I'm using the continuous mist bottle, and I'm gonna do this part right here. Now on the other side, I did use some of this flamingo color that I brought it down from the sky. You can see it up there. So I brought it down and added some in the water. So I'm gonna do just a couple little tiny highlights, like it's reflecting off of, in this choppy water right here, off of the sky. Maybe some over here too. There we go. And that was it. That's all I wanted in there. And then maybe once I'm done with that, I can just go in and add a few more of my lighter colors. back in the lighter blues and create some little waves and some foam. And this is just the really nitpicky part. This is all just the tiniest details that I'm getting in on here before I call it done. That was it. That's it for the highlights right there. That's really all I did on the other side. So I'm going to move on to my foam. I like this foam. I did kind of chop off parts of the top of it, so I'm going to add some more white, which is, I'm just using Dixie Belle in the color Cotton for the foam. And a crappy brush. Not your best brush for this part, because I don't want to ruin them. And I'm just going in, and I've already got my under shading. So like this is the areas where it's darker and where the sun is not hitting off the waves. And just kind of adding a little spray and a little texture to the top. You can go in with like a pointier brush, and you know, you can do details more like what's up here. But for this part, I just wanted it to be that wave that crashes, like right after this part where it just crashes and it's just foam. It is getting there, and I'm taking you guys along for the ride with this one, so it's been a fun piece. I think this will probably be the last live. This is number 3, kind of in a series I did. I think I'll have to go back and rename them 1, 2, and 3, but this is going to be the last live for this piece. This might have some more foam on it. Yeah, that looks good. You can really see them. They popped with that for sure. And I'm going to bring in a bit of the navy that I had, that navy color, Bunker Hill Blue, just to add, make sure I keep that depth of shadowing. I don't want to get rid of all of it, because even when you look at like spray, you know, you can still see shadows and highlights all over it. So all right, so last, well, maybe not quite last, second to last, I'm adding in some more white foam along the front of this wave, and I just made some little, this part's pretty simple. I want to leave underneath the gray color and then do some foam coming back across the top of the wave like it would be being pulled forwards with the rushing and the wave coming forwards. I do want to leave along here mostly gray, because that's again where my shadow is. So I can kind of go back in with some gray, and there you go, make it kind of curve underneath so it gets darker as it goes down. Okay. Do a little more foam over here. Sorry, I get quiet. I need to concentrate. Sometimes I have to concentrate on what I'm doing. And for the foam, sometimes I go in with it almost like see-through. I've just rinsed out my brush, so there's hardly any paint on it. And once that dries, it'll fade a little bit. And I'll just make little motions like it's going back. As it's being pulled towards that other wave back there. maybe a bit brighter along the edge, just because that's where most of the foam would be. This part you can just kind of have fun with. I guess I have fun with all of it, so. I can spend way too long on one piece. Just adding in a little bit more of the cotton to make it brighter and whiter over here. And there you have my foam. You can pretty much see it on the other side. And that's how I did this side too. And if you want to tone it down, you just go back in with the gray and you can add more gray foam in, darker or lighter or whatever you want it to look like basically. Okay, I have one last step. And it was just adding this sort of a shadow on the side, you see. I used Gravel Road in a Dixie Belle color for that, which I already have poured out on my palette, and I'm just using a piece of glass. This part is super watered down. And I'm just adding a shadow, kind of like when you're looking at a reflection from along the beach and the water pulls back and you can see the sand through the water in some areas, or it's shadowed or darker in some areas. So I am using a watercolor brush. You can use any normal brush, I guess, really for this part, and just load it up with water and the tiniest bit of really thin paint. And my piece, I also got my piece pretty wet, so. And I'm just gonna do the wash along the water line and then maybe a little bit in some spots, just so you can kind of see it. And then rinse my brush out and go back over it. And just gives it a bit of depth. I felt like it gave it good depth. Maybe a hint more in here. It can be shadowed. See what happens. And there we go. Now my sand is popping through. I think I had a bit more on the other side. I just keep peeking around the edge. Whoops, sorry guys. There we go. And I'm going in with this brush as a dry brush and blending it right into there. So now I have my shadows and my sand. Okay, you guys, that's pretty much all I had for today. And that is the end of, that's every single step I took with this piece. Thank you so much for joining me for all 3 parts. And yes, I will see you all soon. Have a good night. Bye.